In 2020, a co-founder of the cult Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing found themselves in a challenging situation when they were contacted by the American government, who demanded that they cease the sale of their unproven toxic tonic. This came as part of a broader crackdown on products that claim to treat or even cure the coronavirus without the approval of the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. The cultists, after years of operating freely online without any repercussions, seem to have developed an arrogant sense of invincibility, believing that they were above the law and could continue to say and do whatever they wanted without consequences. However, the reality of the situation became apparent when Archbishop Mark, along with his three sons, Bishop Jonathan, Bishop Jordan, and Bishop Joseph, were charged with fraudulently marketing and selling their toxic industrial bleach as a cure for not only COVID-19, but cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, autism, malaria, hepatitis, Parkinson's disease, herpes, HIV and AIDS, and loads of other serious medical conditions. Mark and Joseph were convicted of conspiring to defraud the US through the distribution of an unproven and mislabeled drug. They were sentenced to 5 years, whereas Jonathan and Jordan were found guilty of contempt of court and sentenced to 12.5 years. Now, I believe we are finally witnessing the death of this parasitic cult, and I, for one, could not be happier. Hi Internet, it's me Myles. Now stop me if you've heard this, but MMS used to stand for Miracle Mineral Supplement, but it had to change its name due to legal reasons to Miracle Mineral Solution. Now what is it? It's a 28% solution of sodium chlorite in distilled water, which when mixed with a dilute acid like citric acid or hydrochloric acid or whatever, releases chlorine dioxide, an industrial bleach and water purifier. Now, when ingested, even in relatively small amounts, it can cause nausea, vomiting and diarrhea, and can even lead to pretty nasty things, including death. Now, long-term followers will remember that I used to actually have my own sample of MMS, but I don't have it any longer because I used to keep it stored on the shelf behind me, and you know what, let's take the camera off and have a look, shall we? So excuse the room, I'm doing it up at the moment, but I had it on the shelf. I don't know if you can see this, but it leaked, and it bleached and damaged the shelf. This is the stuff these nutters want to put in your body. It is mental. And to the people who say that it's not a bleach because it is not hypochlorite, it is a bleach. It bleaches stuff. It bleached my shelf and damaged it. Despite being aware of these harmful effects, the corrosive substance continues to be marketed online as a panacea by the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing. They promote this hazardous chemical as a gift from God and view its consumption as a sacrament. To prove the supposed divine properties of their corrosive cure-all, they conducted large-scale, unauthorized human experiments in the developing world. At one point, they deceived over 50,000 Ugandans into drinking this toxic substance by falsely claiming it could cure their malaria. Moreover, here in Europe, they subject autistic children to bleach enemas under the false pretense that it will cure them. The Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing is not what its most indoctrinated followers would have you believe, a organization that just cares about people's health and wants to help humanity. It is not. It is a profit-driven scam which has been rebranded by the scammers as a religious organization to try and evade any legal consequences. That's why they rebranded it as a church. It has nothing to do with helping people. It's trying to protect people who are pushing poison on vulnerable people.
Listen, we're going to start a church, and man, they flipped out. Everybody hated the idea, and we said, you've got to do this, folks, or you're going to go to jail.
Mark has openly admitted on multiple occasions that Genesis has nothing to do with religion, and his intention behind founding Genesis was to legalize the use of MMS, and to avoid legal consequences. The Genesis 2 website also states that individuals can obtain MMS only through donations to Genesis, but the donation amounts for this MMS is a fixed amount, effectively making it a sale price. I mean, did they really think that no one would notice this? In the initial stages, Mark, along with ex-Scientologist and co-founder of the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing, Jim Humble, used to hold conferences in the Dominican Republic, where they would charge people $1,500 for a 10-day course learning how to use MMS. Why you need 10 days to learn how to do this is beyond me. You put a couple of drops of poison in a glass, you put a couple of drops of acid in a glass, you add a bit of water, you give it to a desperate person, and you take all their money. There we go. I've saved you $1,500 and 10 days. Anyway, at the end of this course, participants would be given a certificate, be called a Minister of Health, and be allowed to set up their own Genesis 2 Church cell? I don't know. And the pyramid scheme just started from there. Through these chapters, I guess, they could collect membership fees and distribute MMS 2-bottle sets for a suggested donation of $25. According to Mark's book, titled Imagine a World Without Disease, is it possible? He and Jim claim to have trained over 2,000 health ministers across more than 135 countries. Mark, who liked to call himself Archbishop Mark, along with his son, Bishop Jonathan, started producing MMS in a makeshift factory in their Florida backyard. Now, according to documents obtained during the FDA raid, sorry, spoilers about that, these guys were making $32,000 a month in 2019. That money shot up to $132,000 a month during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, to all the people out there who are saying, hey, these cultists, these people, they're not really making money. This stuff is dirt cheap. No. As the kids say, they were making bank. According to the Justice Department, Mark and his sons managed to amass $500,000 in 2019 by selling his solution to numerous vulnerable and sick individuals nationwide. Mark and his children displayed extreme arrogance, believing that they were above the law, believing that they were so super smart they could evade anything the government threw at them. Now remember, at this point in time, they actually believed that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, had read a letter from them claiming that MMS was super powerful and all the rest of it, and believed it after he made some really unusual and bizarre comments about disinfectant in the blood back in 2020. Consequently, when the US FDA issued a temporary injunction to prevent the sale of their unproven and potentially harmful COVID-19 treatment, they arrogantly refused to comply and made sure that the FDA was aware of their defiance. During one of his weekly podcasts, Mark, accompanied by two of his adult bishop children, asserted that they didn't have to abide by the FDA cease and desist, and that they could continue to produce MMS and to sell it at this very unusual time in history. They even started talking about the Second Amendment and stated that, you know what, do you want another Waco, American government? Do you want another Waco? That's some big brain logic there. That is turning it up to 11. What were they thinking?
When Congress does immoral things, passes immoral laws, that's when you pick up guns, right? You want a Waco? Do they want a Waco?
Continuing on his tirade, Mark then turned his attention to a district judge called Kathleen, where he said that, you know what, you've got no authority over us, I don't have to do anything you say. He even took it a step further and wrote her a letter saying pretty much the same thing, but then also being slightly threatening and saying, you know what, Kathleen, there are going to be consequences to your actions, buddy, so how about you calm the F down, alright? Yeah, and then he went on to say that he's doing God's work and doing good and that he has nothing to fear. Utter lunatic. He further claimed that the FDA and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, were the true criminals for subjecting the church's sacrament to regulations that did not apply to it. Mark concluded his letter to Judge Kathleen by expressing his unwavering conviction in distributing MMS worldwide, stating that he was prepared to die for this cause. 3 months after sending the temporary injunction, the FDA, backed up by the Manatee County Sheriff's Department, and along with a load of guys in hazmat suits, descended on Mark's family home in Florida. Mark was not home, so agents arrested two of his adult sons, Jordan and Jonathan, for conspiring to defraud consumers by manufacturing and distributing a misbranded drug. Agents also seized computers and documents, shut down the family's bank accounts, and seized dozens of blue chemical drums containing nearly 10,000 pounds of sodium chloride powder. The government also recovered multiple loaded firearms, including one pump-action shotgun concealed in a custom-made violin case to disguise its appearance. Mark's sons were arrested as part of the FDA's Operation Quack Hack, a program aimed at combating the extremely concerning actions by companies and individuals that are exploiting or taking advantage of widespread fear among consumers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Shortly after the raid, Mark's confidence began to waver when one of his now arrested sons started experiencing health problems. Now, Mark took it upon himself again to contact Judge Kathleen, saying, "Please, for the love of God, help my son."
The doctor told his wife a few minutes ago that Jonathan's blood pressure is at a dangerous level. He also told Jonathan that he might have a heart attack. He might die. His health is in your hands. Please release my sons today. They are being affected physically, mentally, and spiritually.
It's worth pointing out here that Mark asked for his son to be released and not for his son to have access to a bottle of MMS. Remember, MMS is a magical cure-all elixir. Surely it can sort out his son's high blood pressure. You'd think it would. This just goes to show that they know that it's a scam. They know that they are selling poison. They are scammers. They are fucking cunts. They are horrible people. And again, spoiler for the end of this video, I am glad that they are in prison. 1 month later, Mark and his sole remaining free son Joseph were apprehended at Mark's second residence in Colombia. The reason for their arrest was their ongoing illicit shipment of this corrosive panacea to consumers located in the United States, Colombia, and Africa. They were actually captured on camera being arrested, and the pair of them were donning some kind of blue jumpsuit, like something out of Breaking Bad. During the trial, the jury was shown images and videos of the shed where MMS was being manufactured. They were also shown documents from Genesis' own website describing the organization as a non-religious church, whatever that means. And they were not impressed with Mark and his sons threatening the judge over the civil case. Nor were they too happy after listening to their threat to pick up guns and instigate a Waco. The four men, who represented themselves by the way in court, were found guilty by a jury in July, concluding a 3-year-long trial. Jonathan and Jordan were handed a 151-month prison sentence for their involvement in the scheme to defraud the United States by distributing an unproven and misbranded drug, as well as for showing contempt of court for continuing to make this stuff even though the FDA got involved and told them not to. Mark and Joseph were initially charged with contempt of court after continuing to produce and promote this toxic tonic after the FDA said, no, stop doing that. But part of the deal of them being extradited from Colombia to the States meant that this charge was dropped. Remember that they actually fled the States. They ran away to Colombia. These people who were so super smart and thought that they could, outsmart the American government, they fled like the cowards they were. Anyway, because of this charge being dropped, they were only looking at 5.5 years of jail time. However, the same can't be said for his 2 remaining sons/bishops. The book was thrown at them, thank goodness, and they were given 12 years each. Whilst we can take some solace in the imprisonment of these scammers, our work here is far from done. Jim Humble, the co-founder of the Genesis 2 cult, is still a free man. So is his right-hand Archbishop, Kerry Riviera, who fled to Germany a fair few years ago. These developments are significant and should be a stark warning to other charlatans out there that people are coming for you. But like I said, our work isn't done, and there are still people out there who are pushing this nonsense. And I, personally, can't wait until all of them are in prison.